Yo, what is up guys? It's the Goblin and welcome back to another Fortnite video. Tonight's video, I'm going to be giving you guys 7 unique tips, stuff that I haven't really focused on. They're kind of niche things or maybe not advanced tips, but stuff that you really have to think about that if you implement and are thinking about in gameplays, it can help you get way more solo wins. Hope you guys will enjoy this video. I know you guys do like my tips and trick videos. Smack a like on this thing. Let's go for 1,500 likes. That would be amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. I would appreciate that as well. This gameplay was from like right the night before they took out the glider redeploy. Of course, the glider redeploy is now out of the game, so that is a big change. And personally, I'm like, I really think that it was kind of weird how they changed the game completely for a couple of weeks and then just went back like nothing happened. But you know, glider redeploy, either way, I think it's not that big of a deal. I like the game either way. Of course, now it is taken out, so just remember now, you can't jump off of stuff and you're gonna take fall damage. Of course, you know, they have that little warning screen at the main menu, I guess, or at the Battle Royale menu, so that's what it is. So I have 7 tips here that are stuff that, you know, advanced players do that might be stuff that, you know, casual players don't even think about. So let's get into it. First tip here is to listen to the enemy sounds in a fight. For example, the main one I have here as the example is listen for a double barrel. All the guns have unique sounds. The double barrel has a very unique sound when they pull it out, when they're reloading it, when they're cocking it, and everything like that. You can hear that the enemy has a double barrel, and by doing that, you can control the fight and, you know, build up, try to get high ground on them, try to stay above the enemy, and try to make sure that you don't get close to somebody who has the double barrel. Listening for what guns your enemy has can be a major key. Even if it's early game, you pick up a pistol, there's an enemy in the other room, but then you hear him pick up a shotgun. Sounds aren't just for footsteps. I mean, you need to have, this is a game where, you know, I'm someone that I love to like play games like, you know, Call of Duty, certain Call of Duties where you don't need the footsteps, or League of Legends where you don't really need sound. I love to play those games and listen to a podcast or listen to, you know, some of my favorite albums. But in this game, Fortnite, you need to have your sound on completely. You need to have it cranked for listening for footsteps, which is obvious. But the tip here is to listen. You can listen for other things when the enemy is reloading, when they have a double barrel, and different stuff like that. So I think that is a really good tip that, you know, advanced players are already doing, but a lot of people aren't even thinking about. Next tip is for the late game, to keep track of players. Now, this one is a little bit more self-explanatory. Basically, late game, you want to, and I'm talking when there's like less than 7 people, maybe when there's like less than 5 people. Of course, if you're alive, you're going to be one of those people. So you subtract 1 from the total player count left, and then that's how many, you know, enemies are going to be on the map. And what I mean by keeping track of people late game is it's even more important now when there's no glider redeploy, because with the glider redeploy, I mean, people would just fly around. It was hard to keep track. But if you build up a 1x1, for example, there's 4 people left, right? So I build up in a 1x1. That means there's 3 enemies, and I look and I see 1 enemy to my southwest. I see 1 enemy, you know, over to the right. I see 1 enemy behind me. I know that I'm in a bad position because I'm getting, you know, I'm going to get pinched on the next zone. It's all about thinking ahead in Fortnite, and especially late game, it really comes down to who can think ahead and plan to, you know, be able to basically position themselves best. Because late game, you want to be, when there's 3 people left, you want to be the one third party in that fight. You do not want to be the one getting sandwiched. And I think a lot of people lose late game because they lose track of players or because of bad positioning. So that's one thing to keep track of. Next is with rockets. Now, rockets in this game, of course, were nerfed a couple months ago. Before that, you could have basically unlimited rockets. You could have like, yeah, I think the limit was like 100 or something like that, which is absolutely ridiculous, of course, to have RPGs or grenade launchers. Now they have the quad launcher as well. And what I mean by count the rockets is another thing that is even more strong now that the glider redeploy was taken out in the recent update the other day. So I think that, you know, when an enemy is spraying a quad launcher at you, or when the enemy is spraying a RPG or a grenade launcher, sort of count the bullets. You don't have to count them every single time, but if you see, you know, oh, he just shot 5 grenade launchers at me right there, he probably only has a couple left. You know, you can bet your odds on that because the max people can hold is 12 in their inventory, and then 1 in the RPG, 4 in the quad, of course, and then 6 in the grenade launcher. So count the grenades and know, you know, when your enemies are spamming, you know, keep track of who has the grenade launcher first of all, and how much they are spamming it. You can sort of tell, you know, when you've heard them, and you can hear it from a long way away. When you've heard them shoot 9 RPGs at another player, most likely they're running low, and that is good for you and a good time to third parties. So that's another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with the double barrel, but it's a little different because it revolves actually, and you don't have to count it, like, you don't have to go like 1, that's 2 RPG, that you don't have to do like that, but just, you know, make a mental note that, okay, this guy's shooting a lot, he's probably running out. Next is to another one, and these are all sort of things that will give you slight advantages, and I think these are like keys to winning a lot that a lot of people don't think about. The next one I have written down here on my notes is to notice material changes on enemies. Now, when people's material change, especially from brick to metal, even from wood to brick, it means they're obviously out of that material for the most part. People don't usually manually change it. It's usually automatic with the auto change. So if you see someone using wood and then it switches over to brick and then it switches over to metal, they're probably out of materials. And that means a bunch of different things. Number one, if someone's out of materials, they're less valuable to kill because you get less out of it. Number two, if they're out of materials, it should be an easy gunfight, so it should be an easy kill to take out. And that's another thing that I think even this is something that I don't pay attention to as much because, like I said, you have to be thinking about 100 things and thinking ahead in Fortnite, and it really is decision, building. A lot of people can build good. A lot of people can have good aim, but it really does. I think decision making is what separates the top players from the really, really great players from the really good players. I think that's what it is. Noticing material changes on enemies can be major key. In mid-fight, nobody's changing materials, so it's usually going to be an automatic one. Next is to cover your sides while peeking in a 1v1 late game, and this is one that probably I've died so many times because of this, and even though I give the tip, it doesn't mean that I, forget to do it sometimes. Whenever late game, when you're late game, you've already invested, 10, 15, 20 minutes into the game. You probably want to win by then. And if you build up a 1v1, something that I've started to do a little bit more is I build the 1v1, but if I am going, if I know, okay, there's an enemy to my south, I'm going to build 3 walls covering my sides and covering the north, the west, and the east, and I'll just basically have that one lookout, so I can only be shot by hopefully that player or another player from that angle. If you're peeking a 1v1 and you're exposed by all angles, snipers in this game are getting good. Like, snipers are good, dude. Even on console. On PC, it's probably another even realm how good the snipers are. But on console, a lot of my deaths are, I get sniped when I'm trying to fight, or I get third-party sniped, or, the snipe just hurts me and then ruins the fight. So make sure you're always covering your sides. Even in build fights sometimes, if you are getting third-party, you want to try to cover and reinforce, especially now because they can just shoot you down. But that is a really, really important tip, I think, and it will prevent you from getting sniped. And sure, it makes you, maybe playing a little bit more safe or a little bit more campy, but once you've invested so much time into that specific gameplay, I think it's definitely worth it. Next tip I have here is streamer mode. Now, streamer mode is good. You don't have to use it, but streamer mode does give you a little bit of an advantage in this game. And what it does is basically when you're streamer mode, it hides your name from people, so people don't stream snipe as much. But that's not the main strength of it. What it does is it converts people that aren't using streamer mode themselves. It shows them in the kill feed as the skin they're using. So it might say Reef Ranger, it might say Nog Ops, it might say whatever skin the person's using. And when you're third party in fights and you see Triceratops killed Nog Ops, when you go into that build and into those fights, you are looking for the Triceratops that is still alive, that's probably weak from that fight. So if you run up there and you see a soccer skin or a football skin, that's obviously not that player, and you have to take out that player and another one. So it sort of goes along with keeping track of players. Streamer mode is a good way to do that. It is kind of weird how streamer mode does give you, it is a significant advantage. I mean, I've seen Nick A30 talk about this. I'm sure some other people have talked about it as well, because it is a significant advantage when third party in fights and even other situations. But most of the time when you're third party, third parties are going to happen a lot in this game, with or without the glider redeploy, and that's a good thing to think about. My next thing is to fight for supplies. Now, in this game, a lot of people think that, sometimes when you're weak, you think that maybe you want to hide or you want to go loot. And it all depends on being able to figure out whether to loot by normal strategy, which a normal strategy of looting would be, farming the trees, smacking the trees, going into a building, looking for chests, looking for shields, or you can fight for loot or do what I call the Negan strategy, sort of inspired from Negan from Walking Dead. How he basically says, you guys work for me and I take your stuff, to the group of the Walking Dead. And basically it's the same sort of stuff. If you land somewhere and, you let the other person loot up that side and then you kill them, you get all the loot, except the shields that they popped already and stuff like that. But you can, there's multiple ways to loot, and what I'm trying to say here is don't be afraid. Sometimes fighting is not only the best move, there's not that much incentive to fight in this game, but sometimes, if you're low mats late game, you have to go and try to third party a fight because you're not going to win a game with no mats. I mean, especially in 2018, November 2018, where everyone can build like a maniac. So sometimes you do have to play aggressive even when you don't want want to. On the other hand, when it's early game and there's places that are still unlooted, you can probably just get out of there, run away, and, you know, find mushrooms, be able to farm the trees, be able to farm stacks of wood, apples, or just get, you know, chests and loot straight up. So that's some tips I would give you guys as far as this game goes. And I think these tips are, you know, these aren't your normal sort of, you know, obvious tips. These are more niche stuff that I'm sure some of you guys already, you know, do this stuff and think about it, but probably the majority of people watching this video don't implement all 7 of these things into their gameplay, which I think could be actually a very, very good thing to do. So, hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you guys could smack a like, I would really, really appreciate that. Once again, let's go for 1,500 likes. That would be amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. And yeah, really appreciate you guys watching and sticking to the end. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.